All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of New York State of Mind. Mitch Broder here with Pat Tartaro. Back to being virtual remote now that the semester has concluded. So this is what it's going to be for a few more weeks until we're back on campus. Hopefully, mid to late January is the timeline. So, we should be live on the air then. But, for now, sit back, enjoy this pre-recorded podcast. And with that being said, Pat, let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's just hop right into this blasphemy that I came across on social media today. Floyd Mayweather, boxing legend, is going to be coming out of retirement, though being it is an exhibition match, but he's going to be fighting Logan Paul, uh, YouTube, I guess, sensation you could call him, popular public figure. I thought this was ridiculous. Obviously, it just seems as if Floyd is coming out of retirement to grab a quick check, I guess you could say. But listen, I don't really know what else to say besides Logan Paul. Better hope that he makes it out of there without any serious injuries. What was your take on this?
Well, as a friend of mine put it, I guess Logan Paul wants to see God soon. I think that pretty much sets it up for this fight. Listen, Logan, you beat Nate Robinson, a
That was
35.
his brother. That was his brother. Jake beat me.
Jake, I am tripping.
Logan doesn't even have a win. He lost. Do you know KSI, the other
Oh
YouTuber?
yeah, I forgot about
He,
this. Oh my
he doesn't even
goodness.
have a win. He lost to KSI, who's
Yeah.
not even a professional
No.
boxer. Now he's going
Yeah.
to go up against one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time.
Now listen, you and me talked about it off air, and I think we both can agree. Listen, Mayweather could literally kill him if he wanted to. He could. But I think he knows that too. And he's like, listen, I'm not trying to take someone's life, okay, on television for a national audience. As you said it, if he lands one hit on Money Mayweather, then like kudos to him because
Yeah,
he's
no,
not. He's
that's
not
his
gonna
W for him.
he's not gonna touch him. He's the greatest defensive fighter the sport's ever seen, basically. Like,
It doesn't matter how old he is either.
no.
Logan can train all day, all night from now until I think the fight's in mid-January or whatever, or February, I think actually. I think it's in mid-February. Logan can train all day, all night. It will not matter. Floyd will destroy him. And honestly, like kudos to Logan because at the end of the day, even though he's going to get his butt kicked, like he's going to come out of there with a lot of money for it. So if that's his plan for it, then
Right.
I guess so be it. Then.
Listen, it's certainly some fast cash. Listen, would I get my ass beat by, Floyd Mayweather for, a sweet, several million bucks or whatever? I mean, sure, but you know, I wouldn't be talking about like how I'm gonna, win the fight and make a whole publicity thing out of it, like that's the thing is he's just gonna get embarrassed. So listen, he can do that all he wants. He wants to make a fool of himself. Fine by me. I don't really care, but
Here, the thing is though, is that like it kind of works. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I am gonna tune in. Just, I do want to see it. Like I want to see
oh, of
Floyd
course. How
fight.
could you not? How can you not?
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to watch it. I
Even
just already know what the outcome of the fight's going to be before I
yeah,
even turn it on. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah, it's just ridiculous. All right, let's transition into that was a very uncharacteristic start to our show. Let's
Yeah, I
transition
mean,
to
hey, it's
football.
2020. Everything's uncharacteristic at this point.
So the New York Jets, obviously, we're recording this on a Sunday night, so this is sort of a recap of all the games that happened today. The New York Jets took on the Las Vegas Raiders today, and they actually had a very good chance to win. In fact, they probably should have won the game. The way that it ended, the Raiders got the ball back late, I believe with like under a minute left to go, and Derek Carr was at about midfield and he hit Henry Ruggs on a streak, and it didn't seem like any safeties were in the vicinity or that any safeties were even put back there to stop a potential play like that. What were your takes on this game? Do you think the Jets lost on purpose?
So here's all you need to know about that play. So let's kind of backtrack it a little bit. So the Raiders went for it on fourth down with about a minute 40 left, two timeouts, didn't get it. Okay. Jets go 3-and-out, punt the ball back to the Raiders with about 30 seconds left. They have no timeouts. They get to midfield, they spike it. It's now second down. Okay. On second down, Carr went deep to Aguilar, who was behind the defense somehow, okay? And he just missed it. It was overthrown. And I was watching this on Red Zone, my dad, and we are like, what are they doing? How could you let him get behind him? But all right, they probably won't do that again. On that last play, here's some interesting tidbits. So, for those Madden players out there, basically the Jets ran in gauge 8, which
Yeah.
is blitz 8 out of their 11 players, leaving 3 guys one on one with the 3 receivers that went out for routes on that, okay? And to make matters worse, because there was no safety help, man to man coverage, the guy they had covering Henry Ruggs was an undrafted free agent rookie who at the combine ran a 4.7740, who also, on top of all of that, bit on a double move by Ruggs. Like they were going to run a 10-yard out on with that much time left in the game. Completely bit on it. The whole thing was a catastrophe. It's probably one of the worst coaching calls I've ever seen. I mean, it might be up there. Now, you can say I'm overreacting here, but I mean, I think as far as schematically speaking, that's about as bad as a call I've seen since the Seahawks throw at the 1 yard line of the Super Bowl. I mean, what is Greg Williams thinking? Right? You got the game in the bag. Put 8 guys in the end zone and just get ready to pick off an interception. And for whatever reason, they blitz everybody. And I don't know if you saw, Pat, the reaction from Marcus May during the post game press conference.
I did not. I actually did not.
He got asked about that call, and he just said, you got to give us a better call than that. We got to execute better, but we can't. You got to give us a better chance than that call.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I don't blame him one bit because to me, like you said, it's almost as if Greg Williams was trying to throw that game or something. Like he got a bribe or something under the table. I don't know what, but
yeah, Raiders
that
money
was
line.
yeah, maybe Al Davis gave him a little something from his grave. I don't know what the hell happened, but that was the worst. That was one of the worst calls from a defense I have ever seen. I just cannot believe they really did that.
Yeah, they literally ran like cover zero. I'm pretty sure they had a spy on Derek Carr too. Like he was Mike Vick or something. I just did not understand it at all. I mean, obviously you brought up the whole Seahawks didn't run the ball with Marshawn Lynch. Obviously the circumstances are different with an 0-11 Jets team. But you're right. Like just from a schematic standpoint, it was horrible. But for Jets fans that are upset, like I hate to play devil's advocate, but like you don't want to win one game in December. Would you rather win one game in December or have Trevor Lawrence next season? I like, yeah, they should have won the game, and it's pretty embarrassing to throw the game in the way that they did. Because honestly, at the end of the day, I do think they threw the game. I think that these NFL coaches are way too smart to put their guys in a position like that. Like if we can sit on the couch and see it, then they for sure know what they're doing out there. But if you're gonna throw the game, do it in a way that's not so obvious like that, and don't let it come to that. You know what I mean?
But
Like I don't know.
here's the thing though that I don't get. So like outside of that one call, the whole game, like they were calling an
Yeah,
okay game against the
no, they,
Raiders,
they played pretty well.
which makes me think, call me crazy, which makes me think that that there was no way that could have been intentional. Why would you go the whole game piecing together a game plan, actually executing it pretty well on the defensive side of the ball to then say, you know what? Yeah, forget it. Let's just call cover zero now. Like to me,
You didn't think,
I firmly believe because I think Greg Williams, that defensive coordinator for the Jets, I think he's the most overrated assistant coach in all of
yeah,
football. To me, I can't stand the guy. I don't even know why he's still employed, to be honest. I firmly believe he thought, hey, let's just send a ton of pressure at Carr. We'll sack him before he can even get the pass off. And you know what? Maybe that can make a little sense, but when the Raiders have Aguilar, who runs a 4-3, Ruggs, who ran a 4-2, I mean, what are you thinking? And they don't have the players to possibly run with them on top of all that. To me, I firmly believe, and this, how we've seen throughout the year, Adam Gase kind of like outthink himself on easy decisions that are just like, oh, of course you should just call that. And he overthinks it and he does something way too cute and stupid. I actually think Greg Williams did the equivalent of that, but on defense. I really believe that every other defensive coordinator would just say, "Hey, prevent defense, everyone get in the end zone." And I think he was trying to outsmart. He outsmarted himself essentially. Is what I think I'm trying to say. So and as far as the draft pick with the Jets, I mean, the thing that's kind of sad is even if they won this game, they'd still have the number one overall pick
Yeah,
because the Jaguars won a divisional game as their one win. This
yeah,
isn't. So I think from a Jets fan, listen, of course, this season's such a wash. Go get Trevor Lawrence, call it a day. However, it's so humiliating to be 0-16
yeah,
that you might as well win one game if it's not really going to hurt you all that bad. And on top of that, the Jaguars really should have, could have won today easily as
yeah,
well.
yeah, for
So
sure.
like there was a moment where it was like, oh, the Jets might win, and it literally will have no consequences. So, I mean, listen, I think as a Jets fan, if anything, I think this just confirms that this organization, they're starting over after this year. This coaching staff's gone. These players are gone. That's what you got to look forward to, I guess. And today just pretty much proved it if you didn't already believe it.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. You said it all. I mean, I'm ready to do it. Let's transition to another New York team who made me very happy today. I was very excited to come on this podcast and talk about my New York Football Giants because they were able to go on the road today and beat the Seattle Seahawks, a Super Bowl contender this year, with Colt McCoy starting at quarterback. And if you don't mind, I'll go first. I mean,
No, all you.
I just gotta say, like, my main takeaway is just like I'm very confident to say it that I really think that Joe Judge is the coach of the future New York Giants. I don't think they win this game under any of the past coaches that head coaches that they've had after Tom Coughlin. I mean, like Colt McCoy, yeah, he threw for 100 yards, but the defense, you got to give Patrick Graham credit too. He's been great for the Giants all year. Their defense, it's a top 15 defense in the league this year. I'm not sure how many takeaways it has anymore, but a few weeks back they led the league in takeaways. I really do have to apologize to Leonard Williams, even though am not sure whether or not I still would have given up those draft picks for Leonard Williams last year that in that trade that Dave Gettleman made. He's been balling out this year, 7.5 sacks. That's a career high for him, and there's still a few weeks to go. Uh, I was pretty surprised, to be honest. I did not expect them to win that game, obviously. But listen, you hold the Seahawks to one touchdown in the entire game, and it was sort of a scramble play where Russell Wilson found Chris Carson in the end zone. That's just really impressive to me. And although it wasn't pretty, they obviously didn't have Daniel Jones. They found a way. They ran the ball. Wayne Gallman has been really, really good in Saquon's absence. And I'm just really looking forward to it. Obviously, they're in the driver's seat in the NFC East. Take it week by week, but I really do think that they should. I mean, like, obviously the division is is the NFC least this year, but I really think that they should end up winning this division, and I'm just excited for the future.
As you should be. I mean, today, as you said, today officially said it. I mean, Joe Judge, you got something there. I mean, obviously, still so early in his coaching career. He's only 12 games in, but this is something that really is like, okay, like we got something we can really build around here. And I mean, the players have seemed to really buy into his culture, what he's preaching, which is huge. And like you said, the Giants defense has been one of the more underrated
Yeah,
units, period. Not just defenses, but just units as a
yeah.
whole.
I hate to cut you off, but James Bradbury is a stud. He is an absolute stud. He
No,
really.
he's been great. I mean, like you said, Leonard Williams, which obviously they had no business making that trade, but I have to say it, the guy's having a great season for him. You're seeing guys, a lot of different D linemen. I mean, their D line's been pretty good in
Yeah.
general. I thought they had pressure on Russell Wilson all game, and the coverage was very good. They made him hold on to the ball forever. I mean,
Darnay Holmes had a pick today too.
Darnay Holmes played well, right? I mean, you're even seeing guys who, I mean, I was so, they're, even like Julius or not,
Julian
Jabril
Love.
Peppers.
Oh, dude, Jabril Peppers.
Peppers has been playing, a lot better too. I mean, it's starting to come together on that side of the ball. And listen, it wasn't like Daniel Jones was playing having the best season, right? But in the end of the day, good defense, running the ball effectively, and efficient quarterback play, which is what they did today, that will win you games in this league. You
Yeah.
know, obviously, is that a recipe for the Super Bowl? Probably not. But I mean, listen, the Giants aren't a Super Bowl contender, and we all know that. But this is a team that, I think we got to remember 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were talking about them drafting top five, picking a quarterback,
I mean, they
and that
started
has
0-5.
I mean, and that has that narrative for this team has just completely changed. Yeah, since that 0-5 start, so yeah, they're 5-2. I
Yeah.
mean, they're playing some of the best football in the this was a statement to the league that the Giants are not playing games. I mean,
Yeah.
to go to Seattle and hold them to what was it, 12 points?
12 points.
I mean,
And 2 of those points were on a
worse.
safety too.
Exactly. It wasn't even the defense's fault. I mean, that was an eye-opening moment, I think, for this team, and something that I think clearly showed that Joe Judge is definitely an up and coming coach in this league. I agree with you 100%.
No, I'm absolutely stoked, and, like, I think about it like this, if Evan Ingram catches that pass on Thursday Night Football, they're sitting here at 6-6 right now. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and listen, they got Arizona next week, which they haven't looked really that good at all in the past few weeks, so we'll see what happens with that, but take a week by week. I'm just hoping, obviously, I'm not expecting them to win a playoff game or anything, but just if they can make it there, that'd be a great step in the right direction. Let's transition to another NFC East team who maybe was favored to win the division this year, but obviously they're sitting here at three. What is the record now?
They are
Three,
3-7-1, I
three,
think.
7-1. The Philadelphia Eagles benched their quarterback today, Carson Wentz, the most expensive backup quarterback in the league now. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he's on schedule to make about like 40 or 35 million dollars next year, which is absurd. Um, Obviously, Jalen Hurts came to the game against the Packers. They did not win, but they kind of mounted a comeback there for a second. They made it a one-score game. Sort of, I felt like just from my perspective, I don't know what you thought, but I felt like he sort of gave the team some energy a little, just having a new guy out there. What are your thoughts on the Eagles benching Wentz, and do you think that they'll keep Jalen Hurts out there from here on forward?
I mean, I gotta say, it was about time. And I did like Carson Wentz, to be honest, back, when on that Super Bowl run they had, but this guy is just not good anymore. And I know that the team around him isn't good either, but at the end of the day, I mean, when they pulled him, he was 6 of 15. I don't care who's around you. That's not just, oh, we can't make plays. That's just awful quarterback play. I hate to say it. And they had been this move had been talked about for the last couple weeks. Is it time to see what Hurts has got? Is it? And I do think it gave this team a spark. I mean, ultimately, the comeback was short lived there,
Yeah.
but
No, we knew they weren't going to win the
oh,
game.
of course, but you could tell though the players. I mean, I think for them, at the very least, it sent the message that okay, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If you're playing like trash, we will bench you. It's hard to do that with a quarterback, and I get that, but they had to make this move ultimately. I mean, just Wentz has been one of the worst quarterbacks
Arguably the worst quarterback in the
in
league.
the National Football League this season,
I'm
and
pretty sure he leads the league in turnovers, almost
he's
100.
up there. I mean, and listen, we'll see what Jalen Hurts has got. Unfortunately, this is not the best situation for a rookie to come into. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a losing team, a team that's got a lot of turmoil and tension right now, and not a lot of good players around him. But I mean, it was interesting that right out of the gate, who does he hit? Jalen Rigor deep, who Wentz has not been able to find, all season. So listen, is it a good decision by Peterson? I mean, I don't know if it's a good decision, but it's a decision he had to make at this point.
yeah. And do you think that Doug Peterson's like on the hot seat?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think Wentz is on the hot seat, Peterson's on the hot seat, and Howie Roseman's on the hot seat. It's been terrible roster management building, bad coaching, and bad quarterback play. And this is where they are now. I mean, it's all the above for them. So I would say, yeah, 100%. He's on the hot seat.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I mean, Carson Wentz has been terrible. Every time I watch the Eagles, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, the offensive line's not that good. They've had a ton of injuries. At the end of the day, dude, you got gotta make some plays. Like if they're paying you 30 to 35 million dollars, that means that they think that you can elevate the guys around you. And he instead of doing that, he's sort of bringing them down. I mean, he's making bad throws. I remember the game last week against Seattle on Monday night. He had that awful interception when they were sort of coming back in that game. They were within one score, I believe. Just threw it nowhere near the offensive player he was trying to find. And in that Cleveland game the week before, he had a ton of terrible turnovers in that game. I'm not sure if you watched that as well. But yeah, he's just been awful. This move has honestly kind of been long overdue. I feel like if the division wasn't so bad and if they were kind of already out of it, then they may have done it earlier. But we'll see going forward. I don't see how you put him back in at this point. It seems like he's lost the locker room. So
No, I agree. I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is this with the Eagles. I mean, like you said, they had to make this move, and I can confidently say at this point in the season, you can put a knife in them too. They're done. Their
yeah,
season's over. They're not winning this division, and that's just kind of that with them. I
yeah,
mean, it's dry cut and finish.
yeah. So let's transition into the New England Patriots. Uh, Sitting at 6-6, they obviously blew out the Chargers today. I believe final score is 45-0. And honestly, to be completely honest with you, I was not surprised that they won this game. I mean, I didn't think they would do it in the fashion that they did, but Belichick has a history of playing really well or having his team play really well against rookie quarterbacks. So I was not really that surprised that Justin Herbert struggled, and it's going to happen to all rookie quarterbacks as we talked about before. But do you think that the Patriots could challenge for a wild card spot? And how do you think that Cam Newton has played this year? Because honestly, he got COVID. Obviously, I know he's had his fair share of bad games, but I gotta give Cam Newton some credit because when you look at the guys around him, there's really not many playmakers. And though he hasn't played, we haven't seen MVP Cam. He's been pretty solid. I think he's been good enough to have this team win, especially given the playmakers around him.
I agree 100% with you. I mean, I think with the Patriots, the biggest thing that has jumped out to me is, yeah, Cam's hanging tough, and their defense and special teams has been dominant
Yeah,
recently. I mean, listen, Cam Newton did not do a hell of a lot in this game. He had
yeah,
69 yards passing. I mean, that's nothing, but ultimately they ran the ball down, the Chargers' throat, ran for 165 yards on the day. They made a ton of plays in the return game on defense, and that's how they've been getting it done recently. And I think that what this does show, for one thing, is I mean, listen, if you didn't already know it by now, the fact that this team is 6-6, Bill Belichick is a mastermind at
yeah,
football. He's a genius.
yeah.
If he's, in my opinion, now the greatest coach of all time. I think this is one of the best coaching jobs he's ever done at this point. I mean, the
Yeah,
fact this
I
team is
totally agree.
competitive. We're talking about a team. Their leading receiver is Jacoby Myers, who I don't think anyone even knew at the start of the season, right? And
Yeah,
yet they're totally in the thick of things. Now, I don't think that they're
the
going to.
Raiders sort of trending down now,
What's that?
especially if the Raiders sort of trending
Right.
downwards now.
Right. I mean, listen, I don't think that this is a division champion Patriots team
Yeah,
at this point. I just think they've kind of dug themselves in a hole where they can't maybe get that mountain. But listen, as you just said, the Raiders are not playing very good football. I mean, if they get hot, the Patriots could find themselves, sneaking into the wild card. And that'd be really something because, you know, a month ago when they were, was it 3-6, 3-5?
yeah. I think they were two
Everybody,
and four at one point too.
everybody wrote them off. I wrote them off. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie. I said they were
we
done.
both on the show and said they were done.
Right.
For
We
sure.
said they were done. It's over. And like I said, this is not a division champion Patriots, but this could be a playoff Patriots team.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
yeah, they're totally in the thick of things. It's
yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
yeah. Just to let you know real quick, their last four games of the season, they play on Thursday night against the Rams. That will be a tough game for them because the Rams, although they're a little streaky, I think we both would agree that they're obviously the more talented team. So they play the Rams, but then their last three games are all divisional opponents. They play the Dolphins, they play the Bills, and then they play the Jets in Week 17. So it's going to be interesting to see if they could. I mean, if they could win out, I don't think they will. But if they were to win out, they would finish at 10-6. So, like you said, just to be in this position is just a great coaching job by Bill Belichick. Just really nothing else to say. For sure. Okay, so let's transition to a different sport. Let's talk about some college basketball because it's finally back. Obviously, no fans. It looks a little different this year, but let's talk about Luka Garza because he's been dominating so far. I know, obviously, me and you are big Big Ten basketball fans. Penn State couldn't get it done tonight, but I mean, you have Illinois. Obviously, Michigan State's always going to be in the mix every year with Tom Izzo. But what about this Iowa team? Do you think they can go far in March with Luka Garza leading the way? Because he's just flat out dominating every single game he plays right now.
I think so, and it's not just because he's dominant. We've seen dominant players before, but what I think makes him so valuable for March is because this is an experienced player.
Yeah,
He's been in the program for a while now at Iowa. He's been to March before. He knows what it's like in that setting. Because we've seen, I mean, we saw, I mean, hell, heck, look at that Duke team. You know, they had RJ Barrett and Zion, right? They seemed unstoppable, but that NCAA tournament, man, that's an eye opener for young players. The intensity of those games is really something. And to have a guy who is your best player who's been there, done that is huge. And on top of that, man, I was always just very well coached. They play good defense. They play sound basketball. They always have good shooters. And on top of that, they have probably the best player in the nation. I mean, Luka Garza is off to an unbelievable start. I think that Iowa can absolutely win the Big Ten. I think that they can totally be a one seed, maybe make a Final Four run. They have it in them because the fact of the matter is they have the best player in the country.
yeah. I mean,
Plain and simple.
yeah. I do want to add one thing. I just think it's interesting this year. We've seen a couple days ago, I believe, Michigan State almost lost to Detroit Mercy. I believe Kentucky. Who did Kentucky lose to? Like a week or so ago. I forgot. I think it was like uh, forgot what team it was, but they got upsetted pretty badly as well. I just think that the absence of fans is actually really showing. We're really getting a glimpse of how home court advantage really does matter. Obviously college football too. We've seen it too, but also just college basketball. Like these teams getting upset, it's going to be very different in these Big Ten tournaments and in March. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. Let's talk about Monday Night Football now. So obviously, we're recording this on a Sunday night, so we're going to preview the Monday night games. Let's start with a 5 o'clock game. Obviously, the Steelers game got delayed due to COVID last week. They had their Sunday game pushed to Monday at 5. They're taking on, I guess, the Giants' main competition for the division right now in the Washington football team. What's your outlook on this game? And do you think that the Steelers are as good as their record indicates? Because I sort of have my own opinion on them, and I want you to share it first.
So I think that, Washington, honestly, I don't think they're that bad. I think with Alex Smith, they very much have a shot at winning games because they play that same, style of football that we just talked about with the Giants.
Yeah,
Really good defense, run the ball, have Alex Smith manage the game, get some big plays out of Terry McLaurin, and kind of go from there. I with the Steelers, listen, I think Pittsburgh is a very good team, and I do think they could maybe win the AFC and be in the Super Bowl. But are they the best team in the league? Absolutely not. And I think that you can just tell from the eye test. Sure, this team's winning games, and I don't want to discredit wins too much, but for example, that Baltimore game last week, they went against so many backups for Baltimore with COVID, and they struggled a lot in that game. That game was close to the very end, and I was just very, I was
congratulations, Philly got
very,
the game.
yeah. I gotta give a shout out to Trace, man. I mean,
Yeah,
listen, he had the play of the day for Baltimore. He hung
yeah,
in
he
there
kept
tough.
winning. They honestly should have started him. It looked like after
Right.
that.
Well, and ultimately he's the backup now. RG3 is an IR, so we'll see. We get to I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure the Ravens hope they don't need to see Trace again, but I kind of want to see Trace again. But I was very unimpressed with the Steelers. I've been unimpressed with them the last few weeks. I mean, I think that they've shown that they are a very vulnerable team. They're beatable for sure. If you game plan for them right, you can get them. So they're definitely better than their record, but I do think they'll win tomorrow night just because this is just a tall task for a Washington team that just doesn't have a heck of a lot of talent on the road too. It just seems like a little too much, but I think Washington will hang tough with them though.
Yeah. I do not expect Washington to win at all, like you just said, especially after last week. I don't know if you heard Mike Tomlin said in the post-game presser. They asked him like what went so wrong with the game because obviously the Ravens had a lot of bad breaks with Lamar Jackson being out and just the whole COVID situation. So the Steelers being undefeated for them to only win by 5 points was sort of a surprise. And Mike Tomlin said, "quote unquote," we sucked. So I expect them to come out and respond and beat the football team pretty convincingly. But listen, I don't want to jinx your team. I never want to jinx the Bills. But their next game after they play the football team, they play the Bills on, I believe, Sunday Night Football. I do think that will be their first loss because I think the Bills will sort of not expose them, but sort of amp it up a little because they really haven't played a good team in a while. Just looking at their schedule, they played the they played the Cowboys and they played the Bengals and the Jaguars, then the beat up Ravens, and then they play the football team. Then they're gonna get the Bills, who are a legitimate AFC contender. So I think the Bills will end up giving them their first loss, which might end up being their only loss of the season. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's no way in hell I'm picking any team to beat Kansas City in the AFC, just simply out of respect for that high powered offense and Andy Reid and the defense that stepped up to. Steelers are a really good team; they're capable, but I'm just not sure that they could keep up with that high powered offense that Kansas City has.
No, I agree with you for sure. I mean, like you said, I mean, Pittsburgh, I mean, I'm sure things change just because, I mean, today, which we'll talk about the Browns in in a little bit, but obviously they had a huge win today. But going into today, I mean, out of all the AFC playoff teams, I mean, the Steelers behind the Browns had the second lowest winning percentage as far as like the winning percentage of the teams they've beaten. I think it was in the threes, if I'm not mistaken, in the 300s. So that kind of tells you which teams, the quality of their wins, and frankly, Pittsburgh just doesn't have a lot of quality wins because they haven't played a lot of quality teams. They've had sort of a cupcake schedule,
Yeah,
albeit, some of these teams that they've beat up, we weren't expecting maybe to be bad this season, but, you know, it is what it is. They really haven't beaten anybody. So I think that down the stretch, they got some tougher games coming up. We're going to see what they're made of
yeah,
because I still don't really know how. I know they're good. You're not 11-0 on accident,
yeah. And obviously they can't control who they're playing either.
of
They play
course,
who's in
but
front of them,
but
but
we're gonna find out if they're just a good team or a great team. I think in these next few weeks.
yeah, and I do want to add Bud Dupree. I'm pretty sure he's
Mm.
out for the year with a
Yep.
torn ACL, so that could prove to be a huge loss for them. Let's talk about your team. I'll let you go first. They're taking on the 49ers, who, although are beaten up, have proven in the past to still be a tough out, even if they are missing players. They beat the Rams last week, and Kyle Shanahan's always going to put together a good game plan. So, what are your thoughts on that game tomorrow night?
So I do gotta say something real quick. I gotta get a little something off my chest, if you
All right,
will.
let's go.
So at the beginning of the week, the Bills were 3-point favorites going into this game. And I'm like, okay, it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah,
The Bills are now underdogs for this game, right?
where's my money?
So,
Might have to
and
go bet
every
on
and
throw a quick
everyone
bet on
and
the Bills.
everybody in the national media is
Are you
picking San
serious? Wait, hold on. I
Francisco.
need to take a look at this.
The Bills are 1-point underdogs to the Niners tomorrow night.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Yes, I am. And I'm telling you, everybody on ESPN picked against the Bills. NFL Network picked against the Bills. Colin Cowherd, your boy, picked against the
Don't
Bills.
call my boy. He's all right. He's all right. He's just some whack stuff sometimes. All right. I like his show. I like his show.
But here's the thing, and I said this today, or, earlier. Listen, San Francisco, okay? They are a good team, and don't get me wrong, they are better than their record. Okay,
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
this is a team that was in the Super Bowl a year ago and almost beat the Chiefs. I mean, played a hard fought game against them. They are good. However, say what you want about that defense, say what you want about the run game. To me, the biggest thing that matters is who is under center. And it's Nick Mullins, who has not looked good the last several weeks. I mean, when he took over once Garoppolo got hurt, I remember the conversation was, oh, maybe Nick Mullins can kind of ball out and maybe take, Garoppolo's spot. And after the last few weeks, everyone has said, okay, Garoppolo is the starter when he comes back, clearly. And I just think that this game reminds me so much of that game last year, that Pittsburgh Bills Sunday night game with Duck Hodges, where everybody was picking the Steelers, yada, 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 and overlooked the fact that Duck Hodges was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what did the Bills do? They made him look like a backup quarterback. And I feel like that, I believe that will happen tomorrow night. I really do believe that McDermott is going to make Nick Mullins look like a backup. He's going to force that guy to make some plays through the air. And if, and we'll see, but I just think that for me, both teams, they're good teams. They're well built. They're well coached, but it comes down to who's got the better quarterback. And the Bills have the far superior quarterback in this matchup. So I just personally don't understand how you could really sit here and say that, yeah, this is definitely going to be a win for the 49ers. At the end of the day, they barely beat the Rams. And the Rams played terrible and still should have won that game. So, like, I feel like people got to kind of relax a little bit about this 49ers team because they're 5-6 in the end of the day.
I gotta say, I am in complete utter disbelief right now. I had no clue.
The disrespect.
No, really though. Like, I like put some respect on Buffalo's name. I'm not even a Buffalo fan, but that is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know who the odds makers are in Vegas, but I'm going to take out a check tomorrow and put it all on the Bills because that is kind of ridiculous. I just looked it up. The Niners are -1.
Yep.
Is that what you saw too?
Yep. The Niners are a 1-point favorite.
That is crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy. Because listen, it's not for a Hail Mary. Bills are sitting here at 9-2 right now.
Absolutely.
100%.
So
I do not understand that at all. I mean, do you, Vegas? Do you? I mean, listen, obviously, like I said, you know me, I like Kyle Shanahan. He's made a couple of boneheaded decisions in big games, like both Super Bowls. He's made boneheaded decisions. Outside of that, I think he's a great coach. And I think, like you see, like his team, they've had a ton of injuries this year, a lot of them coming at MetLife, and they're still a respectable and a good team. And they're a tough out, obviously, even with Nick Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit here and say that they're a favorite against the Buffalo Bills, who I actually do think you could make an argument to say that they're maybe the second best team in the AFC. Because listen, the Steelers have a good record. They're 11-0, obviously, but I just don't think I don't think they're explosive enough to play with Kansas City. So I don't know. I think the Bills are at least a top 3 or maybe 4 team in the AFC. To say that the Niners should be favored is blasphemous. I'm taking the Bills in this game.
Yeah, Pat. And to go off what you just said, about that Hail Mary, if not for a Hail Mary, the Bills are winners of 5 in a row right now.
Yeah.
And being talked about as one of the hottest teams in football. I mean, they have been playing leaps and bounds better than the last time we saw them in the national spotlight, which was, that Tennessee, Kansas City games that were kind of a disaster for. I mean, they look a lot better than what was shown in those 2 weeks. And I kind of feel like people sort of forgot, like, hey, this team, when they're on, can kind of beat anybody, really. And, so I agree. I mean, obviously, I don't want to be too biased by what's directly behind me at this moment, but I do believe that this is a game I do expect the Bills to win. I mean, I don't think it's going to be easy by any means. It'll be a tough,
it'll be
physical game.
I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means, but just
I think
say that the Bills are 1-point underdogs is
right,
kind of
exactly, which is why I kind of think it's going to be like that Pittsburgh game last year, because ultimately the final score of that game was 17-10.
Yeah.
Right? It was a dogfight, but ultimately it was which quarterback was clearly just couldn't make any plays and which one could. And that kind of decided the game ultimately. And I feel like that we could see a very similar game to that tomorrow night. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm also going to take the Bills in this one just because, I feel like they feel a little disrespected, to be honest. The way they've been talking at practice and they seem like they're ready to kind of put a statement out there. So we'll see. But I think we should move on, though, to a team that did make a statement today, and that's the Cleveland Browns, because Pat, Yumi talked about it all season. We thought they were so overrated, They're just winning because their schedule sucks, which is partially true. However, today I'll happily eat those words because they looked awesome.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, me and you both, we did pick them to make the playoffs. However, we did not, we didn't think that highly of them. We did not. But you got to give credit where credit's due. Kevin Stefanski has come in and he has not only found a blueprint that works for that team, running the football and playing good defense, having Baker take his shots here and there, but we haven't heard anything come out of that locker room. It's not like last year where it was super chaotic and all these storylines and headlines with uh, whatever his name. I don't even want to think about what his name
Oh,
was.
Freddie Kitchens, our boy.
Freddie Kitchens, how crazy it was last year. Stefanski has come in and really just set the tone. And you gotta give their credit. The score they beat the Titans 41-35. The score does not indicate how close that game was because it was a blowout. They were killing them in the first half of that game. I will gladly pat myself in the back and say that I have said that the Titans are one of the most overrated teams in the league this year. I just don't trust Ryan Tannehill, but not to take anything from the Browns. Baker Mayfield balled out today. You could make an argument that was his best game of a pro today. Browns are sitting here at 9-3. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say. I think we'll know a little more about them in their Week 17 game against the Steelers because earlier in the year they sort of got throttled by the Ravens and the Steelers. So it'll be interesting to see if they can respond. But they're a legit playoff team, and I'm not sure if they're a team that can go into a Pittsburgh or a Kansas City and win in the playoffs, but they're a legit team, and you have to respect them at this point because they have a formula that has proven to work.
100%. To me, this reminds me, and I don't want to relate too many things to the Bills, but this reminds me of that Bills Thanksgiving game last year where they came out and just demolished the Cowboys, which also got them to 9-3. And the Bills had played a really easy schedule up to that point, and then that was kind of this statement to the NFL of, all right, like the Bills aren't playing around. You don't want to see this team in the playoffs. And as much as I do think that the Browns, that's not a team that's probably going to make a run to the Super Bowl. I would be surprised if they even really win a game in the playoffs, to be honest, just
Yeah,
because
it depends who
playoff,
they're up against.
yeah, playoff football is just like how I saw the NCAA tournament. It's a whole different ball game, and that's still a young team that has not seen the postseason. But today was that statement win for them that they've been waiting for, just to kind of tell the rest of the league, yes, we're 9-3. Yes, we had an easy schedule, but this just is proof that we can play with the big dogs when we want to. And like you said, you got to give Stefanski credit. It wasn't the sexiest hire, but it's worked out great for them. They have a good culture there, and also, it to me, it's kind of crazy, man. They're a different team in a good way when OBJ isn't on the field.
Yeah,
They are a much better offense without Odell Beckham.
yeah, they seem more committed to the run, and it sort of opens up their play action more.
More committed, and Baker Mayfield also just seems to be like more just efficient. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't feel like he's forcing the ball. He's just
yeah,
going through his reads, finding the guy. You almost wonder if Odell, like if Baker feels pressure to have to feed Odell
yeah.
because they went out and got him and spent a lot of capital on him. And with what they have right now, when they're, I mean, it's Landry and a bunch of, no names, honestly, Higgins and some other guys that
DPJ stepped up though.
DPJ has looked pretty good recently,
Yeah,
but ultimately, you almost wonder if he doesn't feel that pressure of just feeding someone where it's rather, hey, I'm just gonna find my open guy and give it to him. And they have a recipe for success to win the playoffs because Baker Mayfield, you know, people have been calling him a game manager, and obviously it's not the best compliment you want for a quarterback who's, a number one overall pick just a few years ago, but Baker's been playing some great game management football, to be honest. He's made
yeah,
some
so
good
listen, as
plays.
long as he's winning games, they're going to bring him back next year. If
Oh,
they're if
absolutely.
they're making the
Absolutely.
playoff first time in 20 years or so, like they're going to bring him back. So this was a make or break season for Baker, and he's taken advantage of it, despite whatever you want to say about how much of a role he has in the offense or not.
Definitely. I mean, you got to give them credit. Got to give them credit. They're good.
Yeah. Moving on to the Tuesday night game because of obviously all the chess that was played last week with the schedule. The Ravens and the Cowboys. Obviously, the Cowboys have had a chaotic season to say the least. What do you think of this game? I sort of think I know what your answer is already, but what do you think of the Ravens? I guess the better question is, do you think the Baltimore Ravens still have a chance to salvage their season and make the playoffs?
I do because they actually, interestingly enough, have one of the easiest schedules to end the season, and they're going to get Lamar and their running game back. And that wild card, like we said, the Raiders. Who knows? The Dolphins, who are right now a wild card team, they have a tough stretch to end the year, tough 4 games. So who knows about them? Frankly, the only wild card team I'm very confident about making the playoffs is pretty much the Titans slash Colts and the Browns. That last wild card spot is open for anybody. And I mean, listen, I know it has not been the best season for Baltimore, but we're talking about Lamar Jackson, MVP last year, and a team that went 14-2 that pretty much returned all their starters. I know they've had some injuries, and some other things that have popped up for them, but this is still a team that's got a lot of talent. They are very well coached. I trust them more than I trust the Raiders or the Dolphins to finish the season well enough to get in the playoffs. So they're totally in it. I'm not. I would not count them out one bit.
Yeah, I'm not counting them out, and although I'm not 100, I wouldn't put all my money on them making the playoffs just because remains to be seen. But they do get the Cowboys. That game against the Browns is going to be big for them. They do get the Jaguars, and then they get my Giants, and they get the Bengals. One thing that I do want to point out is I think that loss last week against Pittsburgh was probably as good of a loss as I've seen the entire year because they had so many limitations and like difficulties coming into that game, losing your quarterback, Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins testing positive for COVID, the game getting moved like 3 or 4 times. They just had so many obstacles to overcome. They had RG3 as a starting quarterback, and at one point, our guy Trace McSorley, and as much as we love him, like he hasn't played an NFL game, so like for them to lose in that fashion in a close game just goes to show that that team really hasn't quit. There's no quit in that locker room. They still believe in John Harbaugh. He certainly has not lost the locker room or anything. And obviously, they still have a ton of talent on that defense, and they have reigning MVP coming back to play quarterback for them. So certainly no quit in the Ravens. I expect them to win on Tuesday and challenge for that wild card spot, that last wild card spot. So I guess if you're ready, we could sort of end with some college football. And I do, before we get into Alabama and the playoff and everything like that, I kind of want to lead off with BYU versus Coastal Carolina
Let's do it.
because that was a great game. And I got to admit, I was pretty shocked that BYU lost that game. I don't know about you.
Me too. I actually really thought that BYU was going to, frankly, blow them out.
So did I.
Um, but you know, Zach Wilson was definitely his worst game this season. I don't think there's any question about it. I think he kind of killed his Heisman chances with that game, and
And maybe lowered his draft stock too.
exactly. I mean, honestly, at this point, I think Kyle Trask probably jumped him in the big board of quarterbacks at this rate. Um, because yes, Coastal's undefeated and ranked, and Coastal's not a bad football team at all. But I mean, we're talking about a BYU team that does have some other potential NFL players on it, and to have a game against a real opponent, which they've been criticized all season that they haven't played anybody, and to have that showing was definitely something that I'm sure he and that entire team is pretty disappointed about because they had a chance to kind of make a statement that,
Yeah.
hey, we should at least be
In the top.
considered to some degree, at least the top 10, if not maybe getting a little looks at maybe sneaking in the playoffs. But I mean, they lost to a team from the Sun Belt, and that's just kind of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, and not to mention, I mean, they were so close. I mean, literally a yard short, but it shouldn't even come down
Yeah,
to that,
exactly.
frankly. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I think Zach Wilson, bummer to see. So I guess now the only non-power five team that's got a shot is probably Cincinnati at this point, who's
Yeah.
been that kind of third team out, if you will, at number 7 for a while now. So we'll see. But BYU playoff chances, Heisman, for Wilson, I think it's unfortunately it's all but a dream at this point for him.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because I think you could tell I really wanted to see it. I wanted to see because I felt like if there were a year to have that happen. I feel like this was the year. I mean, it was a crazy year, all the different conferences starting at different times. Why not just throw them into the playoff and see what happens? The 4 seed usually gets blown out anyway, but gotta give Coastal Carolina credit. It was a hell of a game. I really enjoyed watching it. But yeah, Zach Wilson, I was honestly pretty high. I mean, I'm not sure how he'll translate into the NFL, to be honest, but
Mhm.
I really thought that he had a shot to be the third quarterback drafted in the draft class, but I'm not so sure anyway because the way Mac Jones is playing, and we'll get to him in a second, but the way Mac Jones is playing, the way Kyle Trask is playing, I'm not so sure because that was his one sort of chance to sort of stand out and make a statement, like you said, against a team that's ranked and sort of nationally respected. And instead, BYU lost, and they're out of the conversation. Let's transition into Alabama. They destroyed LSU. I'm not sure what the final score of that was. I think it was 52-17. Correct me if I'm wrong. Devontae Smith is an animal. He'll probably be the first or second wide receiver taken in the draft. Do you think that this is just all of this is just a setup for Alabama Clemson 2.0, not 2.0, I should say 4.0, I believe it is.
It could be. I mean, Bama does look pretty much unstoppable right now. And I did see a funny tweet over the weekend where it's like, Alabama has had two receivers at different points in the season have draft evaluators really thinking, did we take this guy over Jamar Chase
Yeah,
with Jalen Waddell earlier in the year, how the way he was playing, and now with Devontae Smith? I mean, Mac Jones, who's a guy that I had no belief in going into this season, has proved everybody wrong that he is a legit talent at quarterback. Guy can play flat out. He can play. Najee Harris is still an awesome running back for him. Their defense is classic Bama, just suffocating. Clemson's a tough team to figure out because we're gonna see what ultimately Lawrence versus Ian Book for that championship game in the ACC, which is going to tell us a ton. As good as DJ is, he's not Trevor Lawrence
yeah,
ultimately, and it could come down to that. I do think that the playoff is going to be interesting because I think the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are toast.
yeah,
And
no,
the Big Ten's in a little bit of trouble right now with Ohio State. They have to get this game in with Michigan, or they're in some real doubt if they can even qualify
yeah,
really for the playoffs. But Ohio State's a team that I still think is as good as those two programs as well. And like and obviously Notre Dame's kind of you know an interesting team. I think Florida's another team that is very fascinating. I think that they beat Bama in the SEC championship. I wouldn't want to play them.
yeah. No, I do want to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm really interested to see Florida play Alabama in that SEC championship game because Florida's offense is obviously crazy, and though obviously I would favor Bama in that game, I just think it's going to be a great game. I think it's been really exciting.
I think the biggest thing is too because we thought that maybe Georgia could beat Alabama over the years in the SEC championship game. They never quite could.
No,
I think the thing is that Georgia, as good as those teams were, I think they kind of fell into that dreaded trap that we see a lot with SEC teams, which is everything's great, but the quarterback and skill position players just aren't quite
yeah,
explosive enough.
yeah,
Florida, that's not the case. That passing attack is explosive. Kadarius Tony is a I mean, honestly, reminds me a lot of Percy Harvin, how the way the mismatch that guy was back in the day. And it's going to be interesting to see how that, how they play. And then so we'll see. But that game, I'm looking forward to it too, because I think Trask versus that defense on Alabama is going to be quite a matchup.
yeah. We're certainly in for something good in store. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Ohio State because they're sitting there at 5-0. Meanwhile, teams like Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, they all have played 9 or 10 games. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the committee does. Obviously, like what has happened to Ohio State is out of their power. At the end of the day, if you've only played 5 games and being that the Big Ten is as weak as it is
Right.
this year, because let's face it, what's like outside of Indiana, who, although they are a good team, like they're not on any of these teams in the top 10s level. I don't think, at least not anymore with the injury to Michael Penix Jr. Like outside of Indiana, like what good team is there in the Big Ten? Because Michigan's not good this year. We sure as hell know Penn State is not good this year. So it's going to be very interesting. Maybe they'll potentially slip Florida in at 4 and have two SEC teams and two ACC teams, which is something that a lot of people really didn't see coming, including myself coming into this year. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Right. That's the biggest thing with Ohio State, like you said, is that strength of schedule, man. I mean, ultimately, outside of Indiana, they haven't played anybody, and
Yeah.
you touched on it. Big Ten West doesn't look
Nebraska,
good.
Rutgers.
Wisconsin's having a down season. I mean, we kind of knew Northwestern were a bunch of pretenders, which was pretty much confirmed with that loss to Michigan State. You know, they're not in a great position right now. I do think that the eye test tells you they should be in the playoffs because you can see it. They're leaps and bounds better than everybody in the Big Ten. But if you don't have the resume to back it up, I mean, it's hard to make a case for them.
Yeah, for sure. Anything to add? Are we done here? What do you think?
Anything to add? I mean, nothing much. Just you know what? Let's hope for both of our football teams at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean,
Winning as division champions, and
we're both sitting pretty at the
both in
top.
the driver's seat. We both control our own destiny, which is a weird thing for I think both of us to say. Just in general.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for different reasons, but we'll leave it at that.
exactly, definitely leave it at that.
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us on our first virtual podcast here since we've returned from school. Catch us next week. We'll keep you updated on Twitter. And for New York State of Mind, we are signing out.